All right. Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's session from A Course in Miracles. And this session is sponsored by Truly Foundation, your nonprofit organization that is dedicated fully and completely to the sharing of advanced spiritual teachings. In this project that we're currently embarking on, we are journeying through the entire workbook lessons out of A Course in Miracles. And there's 365 lessons, one for each day of the year. So we are on an entire year's journey for the sole purpose of being not conformed to this world, but being transformed by the renewing of our mind. And so we are using this resource, which I think is a very helpful resource. It's called A Course in Miracles. It's a spiritual document that was supernaturally downloaded to humanity for the purpose of helping us to overcome the struggle, to overcome fear and guilt and sin consciousness, to overcome the illusion of this world, to overcome the ego thought system, and for us to advance in the knowledge of our true identification as one with our Creator and one with each other. You know, Jesus and his ministry has such a simplicity to it, such a simple message, such a simple purpose. And somehow, some way, we seem to have made it so complicated. I mean, when you really look at the overall message of Jesus in his lifetime, who was a man just like you, or a human just like you and me, nothing supernatural about him, other than the fact that he discovered who he was in relation to his Creator. And out of that, he impacted the entire world. But when I study and examine and look, I mean, simply, his message was simple. He came to bring the revelation of the fatherhood of God, that God is our Father. God is the one source, the creator of all. And God is love, and God is light. And God is unalterable, unchangeable. That God is eternal. God is an eternal Father with no beginning, no end. The changeless one. God is that which has no opposites. God is the only real, or God is the only reality that really exists. And if there's any existence at all of anything else, it exists within this idea of the ultimate or the supreme source we call God. So Jesus came to bring that simple message that God is the creator of all, is the Father of all. But that which God creates is likened unto himself, which is eternal, which is love, which is knowledge, which is truth, which is one law, which is only what God can recreate, which is unalterable, which cannot be changed, which has no beginning, no end, which is beyond learning, beyond time and space, that which is, it has no opposite, no beginning, no ends, it merely is. And God can only create that and nothing else. And so in creation, that's what God created, his very own self. And he called his very own self, I am. And that is the creation in which we became aware, that we became conscious, that we share this same life, this same conscious, this same awareness, this same being that God is, not something separate, but the very nature, the very essence of God himself. God only created that which is himself. He can only. A seed can only produce after its own kind. That is a universal law. And God being the universal seed of life, he can only create life. So in reality, there is no death, there is no separation, there is no sickness, no disease, no poverty, no lack, no hatred, no inequality. All of the things that we have somehow experienced or happen to be able to manifest in this world, they're not creations of God. They're what we have made. That's what we have miscreated ourselves from just a tiny mad idea of thinking that we could separate from our Creator. That created all this drama and trauma and suffering and pain. So it's not a creation of God. So in reality, the only thing that exists is love. So that which we have experienced in this world that appear to be opposite of love, it's only a temporary experience. It's only an illusion. It's not real. It's not eternal. It won't last. It has already run its course. The only thing that holds it together is our belief that it could possibly be true. That's the only thing that holds the idea of death and sin and guilt and fear and all the pain and anguish that we have recorded through human history. It only has been held together by the mind that has gone mad in humanity. As a somehow, some way, man had this idea that he could go prodigal or separate from his Creator, and it's impossible. So we had to have fall into a dream and dreamed all this up. So it's not real. That's the only thing that holds it together. When we drop that idea, the whole idea of sin, guilt, and fear, it no longer exists. It has no reality. So God's simple message, Jesus' simple message was God is the Father and the creator of all. And what God created is likened to himself. And what God created, it remains as he created it. And that's what we've been talking about these last 12 review lessons. This central theme, I'm not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me. Well, how did God create me? How did he create you? Like himself. And so you are eternal. You are divine. You are everlasting. You have no beginning, no end. You're just like your Father. That's what Jesus came with, that message. That the fatherhood of God, that God is the Father of life. And that God has reconciled all things into himself. And so God sees you and only knows you as himself, not of anything else that we could make of ourselves. God only knows us as the very self that he is, because God only knows love. So you are love, loving and lovable, all of us. And then the second part of Jesus' simple message that he brought to humanity was the Brotherhood of Man. That humanity is a universal family of oneness that share the same life, the same love, the same being, the same awareness and consciousness that God is. The fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. That's a simple message that Jesus brought, which is a huge revelation. But somehow, some way, that message got all contorted and rearranged to the point that here in 2022, we see what the world needs. The world needs what? The world needs to wake up to the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. It's very simple. When you see that all of us, God included, we all share the same life, the same love, the same being. In us is life, and life abundantly. There is no death, there is no sin, there is no separation, there is no fear, there is no lack, there is no scarcity. There is no multiple options. There are no multiple options. There's no birth. There's no death. There's no coming and going. In reality, there's no coming and going. But we live in a world where daily, every hour, every minute, things are coming and going. Is that reality? It can't be. There's time and space. There's limitation. In reality, there is none. There's only what? There's unlimited, boundless awareness that has no beginning and no end. In this world, there's instability. There's selective. There's inequality. There's inaccuracy. There's interpretation. Everything in this world that you know, you've been taught. You learned it. But in heaven, nothing is learned. It is known. And so we find ourselves coming to grips with reality versus unreality and having to make that decision. Well, we make that decision today, that we embrace the reality of our true identification as one with God and each other, the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. See how simple that is. But we have made it complicated. Mankind and its mind that appear that it knows best has made life complicated and has given us an upside down orientation. But the light has come. The knowledge is here. The desire that has been placed in all of us to know the truth that is true always. The eternity that's been placed in our heart is what is bubbling up. It's what is being yearned for in all of us. And all it takes is a recognition and a release of that which is unreal, and a recognition and an embracing of that which is real, that which is eternal, that which is life, that which is true. And so that's why we have embarked on this whole year journey to focus on bringing our mind into what? Into harmony, into subjection of that which is true about us. To walking away from being conformed to the thought system of separation. We call it the ego thought system, which conforms us to a world of separation, a world of death and sin and lack and poverty and sickness, all of the things that you see that are not loving. It comes out of that thought system. It is not a punishment to humanity. It is not anything that heaven would deliver. It is not your payment or your sacrifice or for a wrong. That's not what it is. And that's the majority of the thought system. And so we have made of a loving father an unloving father in that thought system. And this is all driven by this tiny mad idea that we somehow separated from God, that an idea can leave its source. God, we are a God idea, and we can never be separated from our source. Therefore, we are love. We're loving and we're lovable. We are the holy home of God, as we have learned in these lessons. We are the innocent. We are just as innocent as the Almighty is. We are changeless and unalterable in our true self. This what we have identified with as a body identification, a birth and a body identification, and try to make that a true and real substitute for reality, for who we really are as timeless and formless beings. It has only further covered up the truth. But we're here to what? Uncover the illusion of body identification by making us aware of our true identification and our equality with our Creator, and our innocence, and our wholeness, our holiness, our wholeness, our completion. There's nothing missing and nothing broken in our reality. But in the dream of separation, everything is missing and everything is broken, and everything is coming and going. Everything has been born and everything is dying. Everything is decaying. Well, that's in the world of what? A world of illusion, a world of perception that we made, because that which is perfect cannot make anything but perfection. And that's why you and I are perfect in our truest sense, in our truest essence, in our nature. Yes, we are. And when we wake up to these realities, when you and I wake up to these realities, we see a whole new world. We become entrenched with a whole new purpose in life, a whole new function. Everything begins to what? Everything begins to fall in harmony and make sense. And then we become, this, we become this substance and evidence of the truth. Your life becomes the substance and the evidence of what is true. Hebrews said it this way: we become the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things that are not seen. Because in reality, that which is reality cannot be seen with the natural eye. It can only be seen through the eye of truth. And that's why we're here, sharing these truths that are true always, with the focus on our identity, so that we can be transformed, moved from this idea of separation, be transformed from a belief in separation to our knowing of who we are. And that comes through the renewing. In other words, the mind has the capacity to go back to its original state, which is peace. That's what renewing means. To renew means that it was new at one point, but something happened. But in reality, nothing really happened. That's what the Course says. It says a tiny mad idea creeped into the mind. What would it be like to be separate from God? Is that possible? That tiny mad idea created all of this. Look around you. Oh, it doesn't have any power of its own to do it. No, it used your power and mine to do it. Because all power has been given unto us in heaven and in earth. And so today we're going to be looking at Workbook Lesson 212. Boy, that was a long introduction. So 212, Workbook Lesson 212. So this is our 12th review lesson in this 20-day review period that we're in. We're on review lesson 12, number 12, lesson 212. And we always start out our review lesson with our central theme. And we're going to start there today. I am. Notice now, I am. Say to yourself, I am. Because you are. I am simply means what God created. God is, therefore I am. What God created, or what God extended in creation, is his very own self, and he called it the I am. And that's your essence, that's your being. It's not different than God. You share the same being that God is. So when you say I am, you really need to think. We really need to think before we complete that sentence, because we use that I am, and we say a lot of things about ourselves that are not true. I am old, I am sick, I'm broke, I'm depressed, I'm confused, I'm this, I'm that. And so when we say these things, no wonder we experience these things, because what we're saying is that I know what I am, and God doesn't. That's what we're saying. But when we align our I am to that which is reality, that is what you experience. I am the holy home of God. I am what God is. I am God's inheritance. I am to the praise of his glory. I am, like Jesus says, I and my Father are one. When you've seen me, the I am, you've seen the God is, because we're the same. And so it says, I am not a body. So we're declaring what we're not. Sometimes you have to just declare, I'm not that. I'm not the labels that the world had put on me. I'm not even the labels that my parents put on me, if they were not in alignment with my true identity. I am formless. I am timeless. I have no opposites. I am of no beginning. I am of no end. I'm unalterable. I'm eternal. I am eternal. I am changeless. I remain as God created me. I am not a body. I am free. So the opposite of freedom is to see yourself as a body. That's imprisonment. And this is not to say that a body has no purpose and is not useful. No, that's not what we're saying. We just want to establish the fact that I'm aware of a body that I'm expressing in this three-dimensional world in, but that is not who I am. In essence, that is not my inheritance. That is not my essence. That is not my nature. And so to establish what you are not is to establish what you are. I am not a body, but I am free. The body is very limiting. The body is very needy. The body is so temporary. It's only a short experience. That it is so short that you're easily forgotten. But that is not what you are or who you are. That is what you are aware of. That is available to you to express in this dimensional world, this world of time and form, which is very temporal itself. So it's like you've been given the proper clothing, the proper vehicle in which to go into the world of time and space. For the purposes of that which is true, for the will of God. And that is to be a light to the world, and for the function of forgiving the world of its belief in the unreality of the world, so that humanity can wake up and reacquaint itself with its happiness, its joy, its peace, its eternal state, its creative, endless, boundless, infinite self. So that the identification dilemma can be once and for all solved. So one can return to his place of peace and joy. And so I am not a body, I am free. For I am still as God created me. That's our foundation for this 20-day review period. That is what we are becoming 100% convinced and devoted to. And that is our true identification. That must be settled first. That is the foundation for which who and how and why and where the light of God has been made manifest. That is the foundation that was laid. Jesus said, there is no other foundation that can be laid than our true identity. And he proved to us in his final act as a man, he proved to us that death is not real, that it should not be feared, that it's not real. The body, the when the body function is over and we lay it aside, that is not death. That is not death. Because the body is neutral anyway. The body is neither alive nor dead. The body just is a temporary tool. No more than that. I know this might be this might be degrading to one's ego, but the ego needs to be degraded because it is the source of all of your ills, all your suffering. Trying to make you believe that you're something that you're not. And so, in this lesson 212, we are reviewing workbook lesson 192. And it goes like this. I have a function God would have me feel. I have a function that God would have me feel. Not this world would have me feel. Not even that I would have me feel, but there is a function that God would have me feel. It says, I seek the function that will set me free from all the vain illusions of this world. I seek that function, that purpose that will set me free from all the vain illusions of this world. Because if without the knowing of your true function, the world will invite you into a multitude of functions and purposes that only leads to your sadness, your suffering, and your pain. It says, only the function God has given me can offer me freedom. Only the function that God has given us can offer us the freedom that we so desire. It says, only this I seek, and only this will I accept as mine. Only this. Only the function of God will I seek and accept as my very own, because it is God's function that sets me free. It's the purposes of God that only shall prevail. Our life, our very life is hid in God. Our very life is God's life. God's very life is our life. And we can't make of it anything else, no matter how hard we try. We have billions of years of recorded, hundreds of thousands of years of recorded history that shows that only the will of God prevails. We cannot make of life anything other than what God created it. We can't make life death. We can't make death real. We can't make the body our identification. In reality, we can only accept that which is ours, is that which is God, the one will that we share. And so when you look back at workbook lesson 192, when we went through it, I'm just going to read a few things here. It is your Father's holy will that you complete himself, and that yourself shall be his sacred creation, forever pure as he, of love created and in love preserved. So we were created in love, and we are sustained by that same love, extending love. And so we extend the love that we were created by and that we are preserved by. So our life is to extend that love. creating in its nature. So we are creative beings, just like our Father. And we create according to the nature which our Father is, which is love. So all our creation should be loving. It says, forever one. We are forever united as one, not two separate things, but we're forever one. That means that who God is who you are. Who you are is who God is in reality. Forever one with God and with your self is one with God. Forever. We are eternal. We can't be separate from God. We cannot. It's impossible. God is the life that we are. It's the life that we share. There's only one being. Yes, there's been billions of beings, human beings, that have experienced humanity. But in reality, there's only one being. And that's the one being that we all share. That's the oneness that we all share. This is so important that we get this. You are not a separate entity. No man is a separate entity unto himself. But every man shares the one life, the one love, the one being, the one reality that only exists. And we use a word like God to encompass it all, or love, or reality. No matter how we call it or what we call it, it is the idea. Only ideas can be extended. Only ideas can be extended, and God extended himself. So we are a God idea that's unchangeable, unalterable. Yes, we are. When my voice get like high pitched like that, my wife said, "You're trying to get a point across, aren't you?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Stay calm, Oliver. Stay calm. This is a loving message. This is not a the ego in the world. In our traditional religions, will use fear and fear-based theology to get you to think in the way that they are. This is by no means what we're doing here." The passion and the excitement you may hear in my voice at times is just my love for this truth that I know sets us all free, no exception. It says, therefore, we have a function in the world in its own terms. For who can understand a language far beyond his simple grasp? Forgiveness, notice now, forgiveness represents our function here in this world. It's not our function beyond time and space, that place which is reality. Forgiveness is not needed in reality. Forgiveness is not needed in heaven, which we describe as that which is reality. That which, where God resides and where we reside, in this same pristine place, there is no need for forgiveness. But in this dream world of separation, where we see separation and division is running rapid, forgiveness is needed to point us to the reality of our true identity as one. And so forgiveness represents our function here. If you're here and aware of a body that you have influence and expression through, that means that your function is forgiveness. Your reason for being here is to use this next to heavenly idea to bring not only yourself, but all humanity, and point all humanity to the truth of their true identity. It only happens through this idea of giving up one perception for another. That's what forgiveness is. You give up the illusion for the truth. You give up unreality for reality. And so forgiveness represents our function here. It is not God's creation. God did not create the concept of forgiveness. For it is the means by which untruth can be undone. God knows nothing about untruth. God only knows about truth. So the concept of forgiveness was introduced to humanity as a way out of our what? Out of our illusion, out of our fantasy, out of our unbelief. It says, and who would pardon heaven? Heaven doesn't need pardon. Heaven is innocent. Our reality is innocence. Who you really are, your true self in God, that doesn't need forgiving. Because it can't be changed anyway. What needs forgiveness is this idea of us being something other than what God is, this belief in a identification that is separate from God. That's what needs to be forgiven. That dream of separation needs to be released, or we call it forgiven. The dream of separation and the dreamer needs the false self that we create, the false world that we create. All of that needs to be forgiven, released, and fully embrace the reality, the only reality that exists. It's just that simple. And so it says, yet on earth, we need the means to let all illusions go. We need a means to let illusions go. In heaven, there is no need for anything. Heaven is perfect. Who we are, it says, we remain as God created us. That true self is perfect. It doesn't need saving. What needs salvation? What needs deliverance is this idea of a false self. This idea of being something other than what God is. This idea of creating a world of separation and division with all of these inequalities and all of the things that we see. That's what needs to be forgiven. It says, creation merely waits for us to return to be acknowledged. So we return to our true self when we let go or forgive this world of separation, when we forgive this dream that ends in death. In the dream, everything ends in death. Everything ends in decay. But in reality, there is no death. There is no decay. There is no sin. There's no guilt. There's only innocence. There's only oneness. And this is who we are. It says creation cannot even be conceived of in this world. It has no meaning here. The idea of creation has no meaning in this world. It says forgiveness is the closest it can come to earth. For being heaven born, which we are, it has no form at all. There's no form in heaven. We are timeless and formless beings. But we find ourselves in a world of form and time. And the only way out of it is through forgiveness. It's what he's saying here. He says, yet God created one who has the power to translate in form the wholly formless. What he makes are dreams, but of a kind so close to waking that the light of day already shines in them, and eyes already opening, behold the joyful sight their offering contain. Forgiveness gently looks upon all things unknown in heaven, seeing them disappear, and leaves the world a clean and unmarked slate, on which the word of God can now replace the senseless symbols written there before. Forgiveness is the means by which the fear of death is overcome, because it holds no fierce attraction now, and guilt is gone. Forgiveness lets the body be perceived as what it is. And this is what it simply is. It says it is a simple teaching aid or a teaching tool. The body is used to teach us and lead us to awakening to the body-less self that we are. So God takes an illusion. God takes everything. God can use anything that we've made to cover up the truth, to lead us back to the truth. That's the wisdom of God. So he takes your life, your body, your belief in a separate self, and he takes the contents of your life and leads you back to formlessness and to timelessness, which is where you are and which is what you are. Only the wisdom of God can do this. Only the will of God knows how to orchestrate your life to bring you back to a place of truth. Only. It says, it is a simple teaching aid to be laid by or laid aside or laid down when learning is complete. That's why the body expires. When its purposes is complete, it is laid aside. It's not who you are. It's a tool. It's a simple instrument. It said earlier that it will become a healthy, serviceable instrument when we understand what our purpose is. The body will. It will serve you well. It is not for our identification. It says, but hardly changing him who learns it all. The mind without the body cannot make mistakes. Notice that. Imagine yourself without a body. You can't make mistakes. You can't be attacked. You can't hurt, pain. You can't have lack. None of the things that we seemingly experience in this life, being attached to a body. That attachment brings on the human suffering. But it says the mind without the body cannot make mistakes. It cannot think that it will die. Notice now, nor be the prey of merciless attack. Anger becomes impossible. And where is terror then? What fear could assail those who have lost the source of all attack, which is the body? It says, and the core of anguish and the seat of fear, the body. Only forgiveness can relieve the mind of thinking that the body is at home. Only forgiveness can restore the peace of God intended for his holy creation. Only forgiveness can pursue God's creation to look again upon his own holiness. With anger gone, because there's no body, you will indeed perceive that for Christ's vision and the gift of sight, no sacrifice has been asked, and only pain has been lifted from a sick and tortured mind. Is this unwelcomed? Is it to be feared, or is it to be hoped for? Met with thanks and joyous acceptance, we are one. And therefore, we give up nothing. But we have indeed been given everything by God. Yet do we need forgiveness to perceive that this is so. Without its kindly light, we grope in darkness, using reason but to justify our rage and our attack. Our understanding is so limited that we think we understand. Is but confusion born of error. We are lost in the midst of shifting dreams and fearful thoughts. Our eyes shut tight against the light. Our minds engaged in worshiping what is not there. And so, therefore, forgiveness is our function. That's our lesson today. Forgiveness is our function. As long as you're aware of a body that you are able to express through in this three-dimensional world, your function is not only to be the light of the world, to be a point of reference for others, to rethink where their allegiance is. But your main function is forgiveness. That simple. To forgive the dream and the dreamer. To forgive yourself for thinking that you were something else. Forgiving the world that you made. Forgive yourself for giving the world or the world system power over you to convince you that you're something else. Forgive the fact that you embraced for a moment sin, guilt, and fear over your innocence, over your eternalness. Forgive yourself for acknowledging that death is real, when Jesus plainly showed us that death is not real. That was his final lesson to us. He showed back up. He showed back up. And that the body is just a useful tool to help us to wake up and for us to remain here, to help others to wake up to the reality of who they are as one with God. It says forgiveness here is the closest thing to heaven. And so who or what are we holding in contempt? Who or what are we holding in judgment? Who or what are we holding grievances against? When we do that, we cover up the light that is within us. When we do that, we keep the world imprisoned in a lie. And not only the world, but we keep ourselves imprisoned in that same lie. So we have a function God would have us feel. Are you fulfilling your function? Am I fulfilling my function? Are you forgiving? Not the forgiveness of this world, but the forgiveness where you come to understand that what you thought your brother did, he did not do. Why? Because nothing really happens in dreams. And so we seek the function that will set us free from all the vain illusions of the world. Only the function God has given us can offer freedom. And only this we seek, and only this will we accept as our very own. And so we are not bodies, but we are free. And we remain as God has created me and you and everyone. And that's Workbook Lessons 212. Thank you so much for being with me today. I'm so delighted to be sitting here with you in equality, only as a temporary guide and teacher and coach, pointing you within yourself, and not within the body, but within your God self, which is eternal, which is infinite, which is everywhere present. Remembering, bringing you to the remembrance of who you really are. That is so important. Thank you so much. We'll be back on tomorrow for Workbook Lesson 213. You don't want to miss it. Bye-bye.